Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Food is comfort. Food is love. Food is tradition. Food, it takes you back to those, it gives you those warm, fuzzy feelings. And people have a hard time with you trying to extricate them from those warm, fuzzy feelings, even if that's contributing to health issues. Yeah. And I have noticed that. I've had conversations with people about food here, and they're like, well, that's just the way we do it. And I'm like, but what if you just did that? But no, we don't do it that way. This is what, and I'm like, okay, I understand that's how you do it, but I'm trying to introduce a new, and it's difficult to wrap your head around that. So that is definitely a challenge. But one of the great convincers is disease, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if you can make that strong case, then people should see the light.
Hi everyone, you're listening to Item 13 podcast, and I'm your host, Yom Tego. Every week, we'll delve into the world of African food, including chefs, curators, and bloggers. I hope you enjoy it. This week, I speak to Cynthia Péan, a professionally trained plant-based chef, a nutritional consultant who specializes in Ayurveda, Macrobiotics, raw and living foods, high-alkaline and vegan modalities. She is also skilled in allergy-sensitive, gluten-free, and disease-sensitive meals. Cynthia's company, Afcavé, recently launched its presence on the continent of Africa and is quickly establishing itself as the go-to company for all things plant-based. We held a spirited discussion in Accra on the benefits of a plant-based diet in the African food context. This episode is a must-listen, especially for Africans and those in the diaspora looking for ways to eat better while enjoying the flavors of home. Here's our conversation.
Welcome to Item 13, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have this conversation because one, my relationship with vegetables is no.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's terrible. Everybody who knows me knows I don't like eating, especially raw vegetables. It has to be disguised somehow in the food for me to be able to enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to you convincing me that, raw is the way to go. So let's start with your story. You are Liberian, Guyanese, San Francisco native, I believe. You've lived in New York. Atlanta, I think, also, and today we're in Accra. So how did we go all the way?
Well, I am a child of the diaspora. I am so proud to be West Indian and West African, and I've always had an affinity to the cultures of the diaspora, and so it's a dream to be actually living on the continent. I was exposed as a child to my father's culture, to my mother's culture, and most people, your introduction to culture is through food. And my mother in particular, that was her love language, was food. Oh. And so it was something that I always had an affinity for, obviously. And I started working professionally, went to graduate school, master's in international relations, and started working, and it just wasn't my thing. It just didn't do it for me. And the recession of 2008 hit. I lost my job in the nonprofit world. I couldn't find a job for anything. At one point, I actually sat as close as I am to you across from Madonna, interviewing to run her organization, Raising
Oh my
Malawi.
goodness.
And that didn't work out. The next day, I was literally at Starbucks applying for a barista position. So I was desperate and I was grasping. And someone asked me if I would be willing to head up the dining committee at my church. And I was like, well, obviously I've got nothing else to do, and I started doing it. And the congregation at that time was probably about 300 to 400 people. And I was pretty much doing it by myself with the help of a couple friends, and I loved it.
Okay, where was this?
This was in Los Angeles, California. I loved it. And the interesting thing about my church, I was raised in Seventh-day Adventist, and so a large swath of the congregation is vegetarian, non-meat eating. So I had that challenge to come up with something that could feed people, that was inexpensive, and I loved the challenge. So then I thought to myself, maybe this is what I need to be doing professionally. Went on to Craigslist, looked for a private chef job. This family in Beverly Hills was looking for a chef. I interviewed, I auditioned, I went against Tom Cruise's chef and Ellen DeGeneres' chef.
No way.
They hired me.
No way.
I worked for like 2 years as a private chef, 5 days a week, having to come up with a 4-course dinner. And it was a challenge, but I loved it.
Were they also interested in the plant-based?
The husband was vegetarian.
Okay.
The wife was not.
Okay.
So that was the other thing, was trying to create meals that could be supplemented with meat protein if necessary. At that time, I wasn't cooking 100% plant-based. And so then after that, I decided I don't want to just be good, I want to be excellent.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up going to culinary school. And in addition to being excellent, I didn't want to cook things that were contributing to people's health problems or death. So that's why I decided to go plant-based.
Interesting. And I wonder, and I think that it's true, because I think I read this somewhere, that you're a woman of faith.
Yes.
And so, for me, I am too. And so I think about the progression of those events and just wonder if that wasn't sort of the plan for your life anyway. And then those sorts of trip-ups, if you will, sort of led to what your true calling is. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. One of the things that I like to say that makes me emotional when I think about it is that our lives are mosaics. And if you look at a mosaic up front, it looks like up close, it looks crazy. You've got these broken pieces that don't match, all these different colors. There's like, it looks random. When you're up close, when you're in the storm, you're like bumping all over the place. But when you stand back and you look at it, it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way.
And it's a masterpiece. And so I definitely feel like I'm a mosaic. I still evolve in mosaic, but a mosaic designed by God.
Okay. No, that's a beautiful way to put it too. Like, I've never heard anyone put it quite that way before. And then I've also read that part of also what's drawn you to the vegan, plant-based lifestyle is health issues with yourself, with your family. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? Because later on when we talk about, choosing to eat food that heals, that's the way you put it, how and why that is like personally meaningful to you.
Well, interestingly enough, one side of my family has health issues. My father is a crewman from Liberia.
Yeah.
And my father is 81 and he walks 5 miles a day and he's fine. But I will tell you that in 1974, my father went vegetarian, which is unheard of.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, wait.
Way back then. But on my mother's side of the family, we've had cancer, we've had diabetes. My grandfather died of a diabetic stroke at like 46. My mother passed at 58 from cancer. One of my aunts, when she hit 70, she said she got on the ground and did circles because she couldn't believe that she had lived to be 70 years old. She's 75 now. But absolutely, I realize that we as people of color, a majority of our illnesses are directly related to diet. And so it's really an easy fix. It has to do with retraining your palate and discipline. But if we make changes in our diet, we literally have the opportunity to avert so many diseases and prolong our lives. So for me, seeing people with oxygen tanks, seeing people dying in their 50s, you know, being a burden to their family, and the family wanting to be there for them, but, you know, then the person feeling bad. I didn't want that to be, that's part of my family legacy that I wanted to end.
Okay. That's, first of all, I mean, I'm sure you've lived with it, and so, but that's just devastating to hear. And then, I mean, we hear that almost all the time, especially in Ghana. I don't know if you remember Komla Dumo dying suddenly. He's this Ghanaian BBC. He based in London. He was a radio star here, and then he sort of ended up in London. He just died suddenly, and I think that was a wake-up call, especially for men here, about eating better, because he talked a lot about how he was trying to change his diet, etc. And so that, no, I would say not just for the men, but for us in general, I think was a big wake-up call in terms of trying to figure out how to better eat while still enjoying our local delicacies, if you will.
Yes, I have heard about a few people that died in their 30s that had diabetes and didn't realize it. I mean, that is, and so it's the perfect bad storm, because you have access to healthcare issues and then a bad diet.
Yeah.
There's no reason somebody should be dying of diabetes in their 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, that is all diet. And modern medicine, modern studies have shown that more than carbohydrates, meat protein contributes to diabetes. So,
which is a big, weaning Ghanaians off of meat protein, I think is going to be a big challenge. But okay, so we talked about sort of your background, the health issues, and then sort of you falling into professional cooking, but then you made the choice then to go to school, if you will, to sort of refine your art, your culinary art. So let's talk a little bit about that experience and how you think that sort of helped you refine what you were already doing before, right? So I'm sure you sort of went into probably more nutrition, the science behind the foods we eat, and that sort of thing.
Well, it was an incredible opportunity. The Natural Epicurean, which is no longer in business, unfortunately, in Austin, Texas, is one of the few, was one of the few programs of its kind. What was funny to me about it, though, was I did not factor in the classwork. Like, I thought it was just going to be cooking all the time. I've been out of school for a minute, so when I was in class the first few weeks, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I'm not going to be able to make it. But no, absolutely, it was completely thorough. I studied Ayurveda, macrobiotics, raw cuisine, and it was intensive study. And nutrition, and how you really can fight disease simply with diet. So I came back really suited with the armor to go out and proactively teach people how to make changes in their life, real life changes that would prolong their lives. And one of the things that I learned as well is that it is really not difficult. It just takes planning. And what's happened in this modern world is we've gotten so used to convenience. But convenience isn't good for you necessarily. I mean, buying a banana is convenient, but you're not going to, like, most of the time, you're going to buy the little biscuits, or you're going to buy I love the Apem store, I learned that term. You're going to buy the this and that, even though they have, tiger nut and the velvet tamarind, all those things I've discovered. But convenience is what has really gotten in the way. So one of the greatest lessons I learned from culinary school is preparation and planning.
And then when you were there, so this was in the States, right? So were you thinking as you were going through your classes, like how this then ties back to your background, or to your Liberian Guyanese cuisine, and how you're going to sort of translate what you were learning into the foods that you grew up eating?
Absolutely. One of the things that I've always been abundantly clear on is the contribution that Africa has made to the world of food. It's so funny. There are so many things that we grew up eating, like yam, palm oil, moringa. There's so many things. Millet.
And a lot of those that are being called now superfoods in the West, right?
Absolutely. So I've always been very clear on what our contribution was, and it's hilarious to me that now, that's all the rage in the States. our issue here is that we go overboard with things like palm oil in moderation. You shouldn't have palm oil
Right,
every
because
single
I was
day.
actually going to ask you what your thoughts were in palm oil, because in the West it's become like a no, but then here I feel like you're saying, in moderation, because I think it has like all these good
Absolutely.
qualities, but it sounds like the West is starting to shun it, and so it's making some people here almost feel like, okay, if I'm going to eat healthy, I won't even put the little palm oil in my okra soup or whatever, because it will cause cancer or you know.
We've been eating it for generations, hundreds of
Right.
years, It's not the palm oil. Yes, we should use it in moderation. It's what you're cooking in your palm nut soup. It's what you're fixing with your palm oil. That I really believe that that's more of an issue than the palm oil, Liberians love palm butter soup, and I think that's nectar of the gods. I think it's one of the best things in the world.
What is palm butter soup?
It's made from palm nut.
Okay.
It's the same. It's
actually
just
the
like
same
palm nut soup here, but I shouldn't say. I mean, it tastes very similar to me. So it's a little more savory, a little saltier. But soup and stew here is like chicken, it's smoked fish, it's beef, it's snail, it's grass cutter. It's like you got like 10 different meats in this one thing of soup.
Yeah.
That's what I honestly believe that's what more of the issue is.
Okay. But speaking of Liberian Ghanaian food, maybe let's take a step back and give us a little crash course on Liberian food in particular, since we are focused on African food here. I know nothing about Liberian food. So if you could give, for someone who has no idea what Liberian food is, what are the staples,
Liberian food is very similar. Okay, so you're saying for people that don't know African food whatsoever, it's West African food is incredible. So, and I may mispronounce some things, so don't laugh at me. But acheke,
okay,
so that's cassava fermented. That's very big there to eat it with
Interesting.
fish.
I thought that was specifically Ivorian, actually.
Well, and it may have been a transplant, but it's something that's very popular there. Dumbo, which is a type of fufu, but you don't chew it, you just swallow it. Okay, so that's one. Then there's regular fufu. There's country rice, a lot of greens, potato greens, cassava greens. Fish. My father's crew from along the coast, so there's Liberia's on the coast, but Crew people in particular were fishermen.
Okay.
So there's a lot of fish in the diet. Bushmeat is part of the diet too. That's something I'm vegan now. Even before I was vegan, I wouldn't have eaten it. But so it's a very nutrient-dense diet. The starches that are part of the diet are not refined starches. So your body processes them differently. So it's basically a healthy diet.
I think at the base of it, most African, or I should say Western, which I'm most familiar with, West African diet, at the base of it is nutritious. It's when you start to add those layers
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then once people have access to things from the West, which people see as aspirational, which is hilarious to me, the more imports countries have, the developing world has, the higher the disease.
And
it's like there's a correlation between these imported foods and disease in these countries. So
let's talk about how all of that then brings you to Accra. You're now in Accra. You're looking to start a plant-based restaurant.
A plant-based restaurant and a plant-based food product line.
Okay. So let's talk about how did you end up in Accra, first of all?
Well, I was fortunate to meet a gentleman who is Ghanaian, and he's basically looking for people that wanted to start, African Americans and Africans of the diaspora, who wanted to come back home and start businesses, start investing in the future of Africa. Because we as Africans and people of the diaspora know the future is in Africa. And so we started to speak to him about our product, and he was really excited because he was saying, health is a real big issue on the continent. Because of the issues with access to health care, it's even made it worse. And there are people that have the means to eat healthy lifestyles, but they just don't, the products are just not there. So that's how we ended up here.
And then what does Afcavé, which is the name?
It is an acronym for Afro-Carib Vegan.
Afro-Carib?
Carib.
Oh,
vegan.
got it.
My
Liberian.
brother
Got it.
My brother and I, her father, I was trying to think of a name, and we were like, uprooted, and this and that. And he was like, you know what, Cynthia, you need to just create a name. And
that's really clever.
That name. It's like, I love it, and it totally encompasses everything.
Right. So how long have you been in Accra so far now? How long have you been?
We've been here for about 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yes, only 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness, okay.
But we were here for about 2 weeks a few months ago.
Okay.
And fell in love.
Okay.
Fell in love with it. Excited to be here. I was sharing with somebody the other day that in the States, one of the greatest insults somebody can give you, besides calling you the N-word, is to say, well, they think it's an insult to say, go back to Africa.
Yeah.
Did you go back to Africa? Like, that's a bad thing. And I was like, it's not a bad thing. I'm here. Living on the continent is a wonderful thing.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about Afcavé then. What is the concept? And like, what have you, in the last 6 weeks, what have you accomplished? What are the challenges you're facing in sort of bringing together the concept, whether it's location, finding people? Tell us about that.
So Afcavé's goal, our mission is to provide healthy plant-based food products to Ghana and the continent at large. We want to be the vessel through which healthy foods come into this country and then, go throughout. We want to introduce products from the states that actually are good, but even before that, we want to identify farmers, small farmers, and companies here on the continent that have these superfoods, that have the raw materials for the products. Yeah. And so we can use those in developing products here, and then we can also assist them in getting these superfoods to the West. So that's part of what our goal is, obviously, to create jobs. And the restaurant was something that came about through one of our partners. He said, I really think that we need to have a place where people can come, where they can, everybody won't cook, everybody, a lot of people may not even consider buying the products until they, I tasted this at the restaurant, it's really good. So our plan is to have a restaurant near Asmera.
Okay, yeah.
And it's going to be called Afcavé Tasting Kitchen. And we're going to feature traditional foods cooked with some of our products. And you can see that afterwards, some of our products. And then we're going to have a whole section that's just going to be like small plates of plant-based.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for myself to like test the theory of whether or not I can go fully plant-based. But no, I think that that's a really good way to start, having that brick and mortar, I think, for place for people to go, especially here. I think it's good for people to experience that before they can sort of jump on, not that it's a bandwagon, but jump on it as sort of a lifestyle thing, if you will. And I don't know if you've met or spoken with Selassie from Midunu, because she's also big on food sustainability, going, local. And so she's somebody that I think would be a great sort of resource for you as you think about.
I heard about her because of you.
Oh.
And so I have been following her, but I haven't been able to connect. Okay. She definitely is one of the people that I want to connect
I can definitely introduce you to if you would like. And then you talk about products also. Could you speak a little bit about that?
So our initial line consists of 3 products that are textured soya.
Okay.
And so we have a chicken, we have a minced meat, and we have a steak strip.
Okay.
Yes. We have those 3. And a few weeks ago I did a tasting, and we did groundnut soup, and we did palm nut.
No.
Yes, we had rice
balls.
My
goodness.
People came over and they destroyed it.
Okay.
And so I was like, yes. And what I found was I had fixed it a different way before, but fixing it in the traditional soups made all the difference, because you're asking people to do. That's like a big leap. Yeah. So
it's a lifestyle
like a
change, right?
Step.
Yeah.
This is familiar. This flavor is familiar to me. This texture might be different, but this flavor is familiar, so I'm more likely to try it.
And then I wanted to also ask you, outside of Afcavé, since you've been here 6 weeks, has it been hard finding places. Well, I'm sure you cook a lot more because of, I mean, you're a chef yourself, but do you think for people that want to adopt this lifestyle and may not have the time to cook outside of Afcavé, have you found places that maybe provide that fresh food, fresh vegetables, not just as the fruits and vegetables themselves, but as meals? I find that my vegetarian friends have a tough time in Accra, finding. I don't know if because you probably cook more yourself than actually go out, but I don't know if I find that to be challenging. It's gotten better, I would say, the last couple of years, but I think still people find it to go out to lunch, even if you work in the city center, and haven't made lunch, to just try to find something that's.
I think that there actually are quite a few good options. Coco Lounge has some great salads.
No way.
They have some great salads. They're like chock full of quinoa. They're like really they're like hearty. They actually have a really great veggie burger that I order like every time I get there. It's a quinoa burger. I think quinoa and eggplant maybe. So they have some good things. We went to a Lebanese restaurant at Marina Mall and had.
Oh, I think I know. It starts with a Y.
Yeah, Yasmin. Yeah. So I mean, I think that you may not be able to go to a chop.
Right, yeah.
Chop house or a chop shop, or I guess it's called chop house, and find things like that because everything's pretty much cooked up already. But there are options. There are definitely options. You have to seek them out. But I haven't felt like, oh my gosh, there's nothing to eat.
Okay.
I haven't felt like that.
Yeah, no, I think there's been an improvement. There's more and more restaurants that will have, like a vegetarian, vegan, or even gluten-free section, which I can tell you 2 years ago even, you wouldn't have found that here. So you're probably coming in at the right time where people are thinking more about how to meet dietary requirements sort of across the board.
Well, the thing that is interesting to me about Accra in particular is when we came the first time, my husband and I stayed at Movenpick, and we noticed there were so many European and Western visitors. And I thought to myself, this is the perfect time, because as those people are coming, they're bringing their gluten intolerances, they're bringing their lactose intolerance, they're bringing their vegan diets. And you want to be able to meet the needs of these people. So that's part of our plan, too, is to provide our products to hotels and restaurants and things like that as an alternative.
Yeah, that's exciting. Do you have a timeline that you can share of when Afcavé will be open, or you sort of? We
are still in the
development.
Still working on the renovation schedule. It's supposed to take about 6 to 8 weeks. So
that's quick.
Well, that's the thing. It always takes longer and it always costs more. So we're thinking probably October, November.
That's cool. If I'm back in Accra, then I will definitely be on my radar to try. Okay, I think this is a good time to take a break, and then when we come back, we really want to delve in the topic of the vegan lifestyle, like disease-sensitive eating and all of that good stuff that you'd shared earlier in your profile. All right, we'll take a short break, guys, and then when we're back, we'll talk about vegan. All right. So we're back from the break. And like I mentioned before, I think now we want to delve into sort of the different types of expertise you have in healthy food. You've talked about wanting to make food that heals, which is why you do vegan, you do high alkaline, disease resistant. So I want to be able to sort of educate people, because when you sent me your profile, it was the first time, and I think for me, even like semi-dabbling in the food world, like I was surprised by, and so I read a lot behind what you had shared, but I thought it would be really helpful for the audience, especially as you're trying to introduce sort of this diet and lifestyle, to be able to set that foundation. Like, this is what high alkaline means, this is what, a vegan lifestyle is, so that people understand the benefits, so that when Afcavé opens, when your products are out there, there is that basis of understanding of why it's good for them. So let's start with vegan, because that, I think, is the broadest and what people probably have heard before. Okay. People talk about vegan, people talk about plant-based. Like, what are those separate things, and then what are the differences?
People do use those terms interchangeably, but that is incorrect, because vegan means In its truest form, vegan means that you do not consume anything that has a mother or father, that came from any kind of animal.
Okay, including eggs, right? So,
including eggs. So everything you eat, literally,
including milk, also.
Yes.
Because milk comes.
So there's no dairy. There's no eggs, no fish. Anything that can breathe or did breathe at one given time. It is not permitted in a vegan diet. Plant-based, in my opinion, and by many people's definition, is someone who eats primarily a plant-based diet. They may eat fish or chicken or something like that from time to time, but in very small quantities.
Okay.
And so you're saying that like 80 to 90% of your diet is plant-based. Okay. It's just a very, very small amount that actually comes from animal protein.
Okay. And so, remind me then, so it's Afcavé vegan or plant-based? Vegan.
Afcavé, Afro-Carib vegan.
Oh, that's right, vegan. Okay, all right then. And then the other expertise you have is in high-alkaline diets, which is where I think it's going to start to get a little technical here. So high-alkaline, what does that mean? Obviously, I know it means not acidic from my science lesson.
So, I don't know how to pronounce this gentleman's name correctly, if it's Dr. Sebi or Dr. Sebi, but he is a gentleman from Honduras who, this was his thing, was talking about alkaline diet. And the belief is that, or the understanding is that disease grows in an acidic environment.
Okay.
So if you have a high alkaline system, if your system is primarily processing highly alkalinized food, disease cannot exist in that environment. And some of the basic things in the world, I can't even say the American diet, the world diet that are high in acid are meat protein, are dairy, anything basically that's canned, processed foods. Yeah. So again, it's pushing you to, this is actually pushing you to a vegan diet, not plant-based. And so there are certain things that you can eat that are very, very good for you, like sesame is very good for you, tahini. Chickpeas are very good for you. A lot of grains are really good for you. Millet is good for you. African diet. Yeah. And so it gets it can be a little complicated because one of the challenges in the modern food world are there's so many foods that have been messed around with. And Dr. Sebi also believed that things were hybrids or things were they just weren't in their original form, like bananas. In the States, we have Cavendish bananas, which the average American thinks that that's what a banana is. They don't realize it was grafted and it was genetically modified and all this stuff went into it.
I remember, and to sidetrack, but a long time ago, I think probably one of the first few times I interacted, like had a deep conversation with an American when I first moved there, and I don't know how many, probably like almost 20 years ago now, where they were talking about chicken. And in the U.S. primarily, you will not see like a whole chicken. You just see the breasts, chicken breasts, the fillets or whatever. And this person had never seen. They did not know like what a chicken looked. I kid you not. This was college. This is when I moved to the U.S. for college. I had showed them. I don't even remember what it was. I think it was a picture or something, a food like my sister had sent. And they could not wrap their heads around the fact that was chicken. Because in their head, like chicken is.
Was a piece. Yeah. I know people that. My husband is Haitian, and so he loves fish. Yeah. And to him, fish is
the whole fish.
It has everything. And I have people in my family that are aghast at that. Like some American members of my family, they know fish to be a fillet. Yeah. And that is it. Like they cannot comprehend. Funny story. Several years ago, I was in Uganda, and this is before I was vegan, and somebody fixed some goat meat. Now, the West Indian side of me really knows goat because of curry goat. Yeah. I tasted that goat, and it tasted so weird to me. But I realized I'd never had fresh goat meat before. Oh. All the meat I'd had been slaughtered, frozen, shipped 5,000 miles, And the taste of real goat was like, this is too goaty. Like, I don't think I can eat this. So our palates are definitely distorted because, A Cavendish banana, after you've eaten a real banana, the sweetness is so delicious. And you go back and you eat a Cavendish, it almost has like a chalky flavor to me. But that is what people, that is not about nutrition first and foremost. It's not about health. It's about how can we create this banana so that it can travel across the country and not get bruised, so it has thicker skin, it has this and that. That should not be the foundation for what we're eating. But in many ways it is.
And it's so interesting now, and I'm sure you follow that now, like this whole food waste movement in the U.S. and now people are trying to sell like ugly food, or there's all these sort of different business models that are trying to take that back and say, you know what, I don't care if the banana is bruised, like that's fine.
Well, you know what's been interesting here, and I was sharing with you, I'm first generation American, have traveled the world over and over, but still I am primarily an American at heart in terms of what I'm accustomed to. And coming here to markets, I am so used to fruit and vegetable being pristine. And if there's one blemish on it, it's gone. And so now coming into the markets, and if I see some parsley that is not like super green and super crisp, I like, and then it's like, Cynthia, stop tripping. You have the parsley, I become accustomed to perfection. Not necessarily health, but the image of perfection. So it's taken some retraining with me too.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of, we're going back to, I want to finish the conversation on high alkaline, because I want that to be super clear to people. So we've talked about it's literally moving towards a vegan diet, you said. So if someone in Liberia or Ghana, for example, was thinking, how do I, you talked about, you mentioned some examples of like millet, for example. But if I was someone sitting in Accra or in Monrovia, and I'm thinking, okay, this all sounds good. Like it's gonna, clear up my system. I'm gonna feel really good. If I go out today to the market, what's easy, simple for me to go out and say, here, I'm gonna try to.
Yam, sweet potato.
Yam
is a good thing, and I want to mention something about yam later. Beans, nuts, not groundnut. Groundnut is highly acidic.
Oh, interesting.
That's a tough one.
So I'm going to ask you this then in a sort of devil's advocate way. Because there are some that will argue that isn't having a balanced diet, sort of consisting of a little bit of everything, better for you and your body, because your body also will automatically balance pH and all of that stuff based on what's going on inside of you, versus deciding to do a strict, I'm going to take all of this stuff out of my diet. And even if you think about people that do low carb, no carb, keto, what have you, it's almost about taking stuff out of what should be or could be a balanced diet versus saying, I won't have groundnuts, for example, because it's not high alkaline. Versus could I have a little bit of groundnuts and still have like a wholesome full diet and not feel restricted.
Okay, so what we're talking about when we talk about somebody who is proactively pursuing an alkaline diet, we are pursuing optimal health. Okay, so if you're pursuing optimal health, if you're being proactive and you are trying to eat a diet that is going to keep disease at bay, I'm going to use a basketball term here for my gentlemen listeners. You're going to go hard in the paint.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we deal with is that oftentimes we are reactive. This is after the disease has come, after we've gotten the diagnosis for cancer or heart disease. Then we decide we're going to throw everything out and we're going to do this.
Yeah.
What I am a proponent of, what I am suggesting is, yes, you can make baby steps towards this, but you still need to get there.
Okay.
Moderation is key. But there are still foods that are contributing to bad health. There is a belief that, and I believe this as well, even though I'm not 100%, that everything you eat is either contributing to your health or is contributing to disease.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Okay.
That really is the reality.
Okay.
And, our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, but we subject our bodies to so much abuse that it behooves us to be diligent about what we consume.
So I'm going to say this. If I was going to go plant-based, like my one staple in my head always has been, at least I can have beans and plantain.
Yes.
And that for me is like my golden, like if I can have that for the rest of my life, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. But I thought you just said that beans though are not high alkaline.
No, beans you can do beans.
I can do beans.
There are certain beans that are high alkaline, like kidney beans. Some people call garbanzo beans or chickpeas.
Yeah.
Those are, those are fine.
Okay. But then you see, and I'm not sure if you ordered that anywhere here in Accra yet.
I have not red.
Yes, red.
I haven't had red yet.
I guarantee you, 9.9 times out of 10, they're going to ask you for what protein you want with the red. They're going to stick chicken, goat, beef, and like that. Even as the person that's growing up, I grew up here, it still always baffles me. Like, why do we need, this is already like a protein-rich dish.
Right.
Why do we need to add the extra? And then they'll put in like 2 or 3 pieces of goat or beef or like, I don't know. I think that's where the challenge might come in terms of changing mindsets around seeing, like, you don't need to see a piece of like meat in your food for it to be filling or for you to know that you're getting your protein, right?
Food is comfort. Food is love. Food is tradition. Food, it takes you back to it gives you those warm, fuzzy feelings. And people have a hard time with you trying to extricate them from those warm, fuzzy feelings, even if that's contributing to health issues. Yeah. And I have noticed that. I've had conversations with people about food here, and they're like, well, that's just the way we do it. And I'm like, but what if you just did that? But no, we don't do it that way. And I'm like, okay, I understand that's how you do it. But I'm trying to introduce a new, and it's difficult to wrap your head around that. So that is definitely a challenge. Yeah. But one of the great convincers is disease, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think if you can make that strong case, then people should see the light. And I think we touched on this a little bit around flavor profiles. But I think one of the things you've said is your goal is to make incredibly tasty food that's also good for you. So as you think about opening Afcavé or educating Ghanaians, especially since you're going to be based here, how do you, and you mentioned a little bit with, the groundnut soup at the beginning, but how do you start to think about the African flavor profiles in a vegan diet to make sure that people can still appreciate, people don't feel like they're giving up something for taking on this lifestyle?
Well, people of diaspora, we are used to well-seasoned food. So I think that is key. One of my approaches to cooking is to build layers of flavor. So that is the garlic, that's the onion, that's pepper, that's herbs, those things that go into it. There are a lot of people that just throw salt on food. It's not flavorful and it's not good for you. So there's so much. There is the way we cook foods. We braise our meats. We cook stews, things that they kind of meld into each other because they've been cooked over a period of time. It's using those same cooking styles, those same techniques, but you're just applying it to vegetable protein.
Okay.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed since I've been here are the mushrooms. There are bountiful mushrooms here. I know some people don't like its texture, but in the States, the mushrooms that you find most often are button or portobello. The oyster mushrooms that you all have here are very expensive, and they're not as readily available. They're everywhere here. So that is something that can really withstand stews and being cooked for long periods of time, and it absorbs all that flavor. So it's just finding the things that are available locally and how can they be translated to these dishes.
No, I think that's right. And I think a big part of what you have to do, which I feel like I've said several times, is that education, right? I'm sure it's part of your plan, but I think that's going to be, I think when people see plant-based or vegetarian, it just sort of, the brain shuts down.
Which is part of why I think that some of our approach should be health and wellness and not necessarily harping on plant-based or vegan. It's really exposing people to this, and then I didn't even realize I didn't have meat on my plate. I didn't even miss it. I had a great meal. I'm satisfied. Oh my goodness, there was not even any. So that's definitely going to be one of our ways to approach it.
So a lot of this also requires, I think, cooking at home, right? Because it's just going to be hard to go out there, especially here, I think. And I mean, you mentioned Coco Lounge and some other places, but that's not sustainable for every day. And so if someone that's thinking of transitioning to this lifestyle and considers themselves a very busy person, how do they start to approach this in terms of making the time to cook?
Well, it's your health. That's the first thing I said. And we spoke about this earlier, is convenience is killing us. If you have to take 2 to 3 hours out of your day on a Sunday and fix some staple items that you can eat throughout the week, if you fix your, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, wache. That is a nutrient-dense dish.
I'm glad that wache is also on my list of potential plant.
Oh my goodness, that's an awesome dish. So you can fix a pot of that. You can fix, greens. I don't know how to pronounce the other one.
Contomere?
Yes. Yeah. You can fix that. There are so many things, if you really think about it, there are a lot of things in the diet that are plant-based, that are meat-free. People just add meat to it. So you can prepare those things and you can have them ready available. Fall back in love with fruit. Yeah. Fall back in love with... There are so many things here that are available that are so delicious because in America, we never taste pineapple that's fully ripened. Yeah. We never taste mango that's fully ripened, So it's disciplining and it's taking the time for yourself. You deserve it.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up soon. I want your final thoughts. If someone is listening today, what's the one thing you want them to take away in terms of convincing them to move towards a plant-based lifestyle? And then maybe what's one thing they can take out of your diet today to start that journey towards becoming plant-based?
So people of the African diaspora, if you are sick now, it is likely because of your diet. People of the African diaspora, if you're going to get sick, it will likely be because of your diet. You have the power in your hand to not let that be your story. That does not have to be your end. There are simple changes that you can make. And so my first recommendation would be to start a meatless Monday. On Mondays, you don't have any meat. You just do fruits and vegetables. It can be a day where you fast from meat. And then as time goes, if you're used to eating meat 3 times a day, then you eat it 2 times a day. Gradually make changes. And not only you will feel so much better, you'll sleep better, your skin will look better, your performance will go up, gentlemen. There are several things that will be positively affected by the changes in these diets. But I would say start with a meatless Monday and then just kind of add on to that as you go along.
Okay. I have to say that I've been convinced. I have. I think especially the case on getting sick, health and wellness, I think that as we get older, I mean, I feel like I shouldn't have back pain and all sorts of other issues that I'm only 30-something that I shouldn't be having. And so I think you've made a strong argument. Because remember I started at the top saying, I'm going to need a few strong arguments here, but I think you've made a great case. And then also pointing out things that we already have in especially in our local diet, sort of still being able to have red, still being able to have wache without the meat, guys. I think should make it easier to transition, if you will.
Absolutely. The future is in Africa. And the majority of Africans are, I believe, 35 or younger. So let's be prepared to really experience the best that Africa has to offer. Let's not let our diet or our bad habits get in the way of us and African excellence.
Good stuff. Okay, so before we go into rapid fire, what's next for Afcavé, and where can people find you in Accra, on social media?
So I can be followed on Afcavé Ghana is the handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I am under Cynthia Péan, CCPEAN. That's my personal Instagram page. We are doing a full promotional tour blitz. We're supposed to go throughout the 10 regions over the next few months, and we're going to be doing like American-style picnics where we're going to be introducing people to the products and traditional style and traditional soups, etc. So we are likely going to be somewhere in your area with these products. You're going to have to stay tuned to our Afcavé Ghana page to find out what's going on with the restaurant and things like that. That's really going to be the main way to find out what's going on is when we're going to be like in Kumasi or Volta or all those different places.
Oh, cool! And I'll put all of that in the show notes so people have easy access to that. Okay, so it's time for rapid fire questions. Those should be pretty simple, I think. Okay. So it's just top of your head the first answer that comes to mind based on. So red wine or white wine, or no wine?
I say no wine because I don't think that alcohol contributes to good health.
So you literally really live that absolutely nothing.
I'm not saying that moderation, but because I don't think that alcohol at the end of the day contributes to health.
Right. Okay. Coffee or tea?
Tea. British influence.
Okay. Dine in or take out?
Dine in. Cook with love and dine in.
Okay. Morning person or night person?
Morning person.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Who's your dream African chef to cook with?
There is a chef out of the UK who is actually Ghanaian.
You think of who's Ghanaian chef?
Oh gosh, I can't remember her name right now. She's tall, she's light-skinned. I think she's biracial. Sorry.
Okay. We can find that out and add that in the notes. And then what's one ingredient you can't live without?
Coconut milk.
Oh.
I love coconut milk.
Okay. And then related to that, if you could live on one dish, so like one meal for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Oh, wow. One for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Jollof.
Really?
Well-seasoned rice. I'm the carbohydrate
okay.
person. Yes.
Have you tried Nigerian jollof? Should we ask you that question?
Okay. I have tried it, and I will say honestly, Ghanaian jollof rice is better than Nigerian rice. However, Liberian jollof rice is the best.
Okay.
Ghanaian jollof rice is very, very good.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. And then lastly, what's your favorite African restaurant anywhere in the world and why?
Favorite African restaurant? Oh, there's a great restaurant called Africa Restaurant in Marietta, Georgia.
Oh.
And it's it's like a pan-African restaurant. It's delicious.
Okay.
They're really, really good. There's one that I like as well in Inglewood, but I think in Inglewood, California, but this one in Marietta, Africa Restaurant is delicious.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you for your time. This was an absolute pleasure. I learned so much, and I think I'm going to try to really transition. I don't eat a lot of meat, actually, so which I think is a good first step, but I've been inspired to try to go a little bit closer to that plant-based.
I'm glad to hear that.
All right,
Thank
guys, this was great. See you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Item 13, an Essence 13 production. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. To keep up to date on news and events from Essence 13, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Essence and the number 13. Thank you.